Despite Max Verstappen winning the last Grand Prix at Monza in dominant style, 2025 has not been a good enough season for Red Bull and has been, off track of course, quite dramatic. This team has won many world championships in this decade, but this season is very likely to be a season where they don't win any championships for the first time in 5 years. But why has that happened? Why is Max Verstappen not going to win his 5th consecutive world championship? And why are Red Bull way over 300 points away from McLaren, who are set to win their 2nd consecutive Constructors' Championship? And that is what we are going to delve into in this video. Before we get into it though, make sure to smash the like button on this video to of course show your support. And let me know in the comments section below, what have you thought of Red Bull's season? What do you think the issues are? And do you think this downward trend that we've seen in the last year and a half is a sign of things to come when it comes to the new era starting in 2026, where of course they'll have Ford engines? Now, it may be the 2025 season, but really the issues for this season began all the way back at the start of 2024. Now, we're not going to relitigate the whole Christian Horner allegations, but that is ultimately what has broke this team apart. Jonathan Wheatley, of course, left for Sauber, which is going to become Audi, and it did lead to Adrian Newey stepping away from the team, and obviously Adrian now designing next year's Aston Martin that we all hope will be a championship contending car. But everything was going swimmingly at Red Bull. After 2023, they won almost every race that season, and the only thing holding them back from winning every race and being, say, a second a lap or more quicker than the rest of the field was these aero testing regulations. If it was free and open, Red Bull definitely, I think, would have won every race that year. That car in 2023 was unbelievable in how quick it was and results-wise and how dominant it was. But again, we had the Christian Horner allegations at the start of 2024 during pre-season testing, and of course it carried over into the first couple races of the season as well, and led to Adrian Newey leaving the team. A big departure for them. And we all knew that once Adrian stepped away, that on the design side, they would suffer more. They were never going to maintain that level of quality in that area going forward, because, I mean, how can you be as good as Adrian Newey? A man who has won so many world championships in the last 30 plus years. And his replacement, we'll call him Pierre because I can't be bothered to try and pronounce his last name, has not exactly been a good replacement. Again, you can't really replace Adrian Newey, but this replacement definitely has not been good enough. And the evidence of that is clear because at the start of 2024, mainly because of obviously what Adrian helped design in the off-season, Red Bull started 2024 just as they left 2023 off, dominating 1-2 finishes. It looked like Max Verstappen was going to win the championship by September. It was looking very ominous for the rest of the year. But once Adrian was pretty much gone for the team and the team reorganised, Red Bull started to suffer. They were bringing upgrades that were not only not working, but making the car worse. And their new designer was not able to find new ways around the lack of pace that suddenly the car had in the summer of 2024. And it got so bad that around this time last year, Red Bull couldn't even get onto the podium, despite earlier in the year having a car that was easily, by half a minute or so, winning races. Eventually, they did bring upgrades that did help the pace of the car, and with the help of the best driver on the grid and possibly one of the greatest drivers of all time, Max Verstappen won his 4th World Championship. But on the constructors' side, they ended up only 3rd. But the issues suffered in terms of the aero balance of the car and the upgrades that didn't work and the inability to find a way around it for quite a while was a sign of things to come for the 2025 Formula 1 season. And ultimately, this 2025 Red Bull car fundamentally just does not have the grip that the McLaren has. The front end, as we know, is absolutely awful on this Red Bull. Max, we know, likes a very sharp front end on his cars, and the front end of this Red Bull is the opposite of sharp. It is always understeering and constantly giving their drivers problems. And not only that, we've even seen at times oversteer from the Red Bull when trying to turn in. It's quite a inconsistent car, this 2025 Red Bull. And in general, it's led to issues for Max Verstappen when it comes to confidence driving the car. Of course, for Max's teammates in 2025, it's led to having basically no confidence in the car because it's just so difficult to drive. And led to other issues such as their tyre management, something they were so good at, remember, 2 or 3 years ago. Now they're one of the worst teams on the grid when it comes to managing their tyres, wearing the tyres out probably the earliest in a stint compared to, again, almost all the teams. But these issues with the car, again, is just a continuation of what we saw in 2024. So ultimately, what are those issues and what has it caused in 2025? Well, again, fundamentally, the design of this car is just not good enough. And that comes down to the design team, but ultimately falls, most importantly, on Pierre. Since he took over as the chief designer, basically, of Red Bull, he simply has not done a good enough job. And given, especially Max Verstappen cars, anywhere near good enough to consistently fight for race wins. But of course, there are many teams who have had fundamental issues with their car from the start of the season, but at least improved on that. The issue with Red Bull, though, is the operational side behind, obviously, what we see on track. Firstly, you have the Red Bull wind tunnel they've been using, which is outdated. It's something that's been used for obviously a very long time and goes back even to the Second World War. Red Bull are building, I believe, a new wind tunnel, which I think will be ready hopefully in 2 or 3 years' time. But that is definitely a factor as to why they can't improve on these problems and why a team that was renowned a few years ago for being the best team at developing over the course of a season no longer holds that title because of the outdated facilities. And not only that, but you've had a lot of changes in this team in the last year or so. Jonathan Wheatley, again, leaving the team, a big part of Red Bull. Also Rob Marshall, leaving Red Bull. He was another key part of that Red Bull team. And the replacements simply just have not been on the same level, and that's led to a worse car and a worse situation than what we have seen before. And ultimately, all the noise around Christian Horner that we've heard for the last year and a half until he was eventually and rightly sacked has really caused this team to fall to this point, where they are 4th in the championship, most likely will finish 4th in the championship because they've only really got one car in play, and they are going to again fail to win most likely both championships for the first time in 5 years. But in terms of the root of how this has all come about, it all goes back to the Christian Horner allegations. Red Bull, at least in my view, you guys may disagree. If you do, that's fine, but they did not deal with the situation well enough. It caused a split in the team, and they should have removed Christian Horner because of that, because it was not worth losing such important personnel such as Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley, who are more important, or were more important, to Red Bull's success than Christian Horner. It wasn't worth losing them, but Red Bull, the majority owners, who I believe are from Thailand, they sided with Horner. And ultimately, that is what has destroyed the team. His sacking, too little too late, and now Red Bull are left picking up the pieces. If Red Bull had dealt with this issue properly and Horner had been removed and let's say he was replaced by Jonathan Wheatley, which I think would have been a good replacement, Adrian Newey would be still at Red Bull, and I guarantee you that Red Bull would be maybe not a second a lap quicker than it is now, but it would be at least 0.3 of a second quicker than it is right now. Because Adrian would have found better designs and, most importantly, better solutions to any problems aerodynamically they were having. What they had with this Red Bull car since the start of the ground effect era was a perfect car. Most downforce, very efficient in a straight line, not too draggy, and a car that managed its tyres very well. It was the perfect car, basically. And they've essentially ruined what was a brilliant machine. But thankfully for Red Bull, the pain won't continue much longer when it comes to these types of cars, because of course 2026 is around the corner and it's a complete reset. But do we trust Pierre and the new design team to get the 2026 regulations right, and to get them as right as, say, as Adrian will at Aston Martin, or as McLaren will with their brilliant design team, or even Mercedes, now they've got James Allison back? I don't trust what's going on at Red Bull, and I would not be surprised if Red Bull next season were more of a midfield team, given just the trend of this team and the lack of promising things that we're seeing there. But let me know, guys, in the comments section down below, what have you thought of Red Bull's season and the issues, and what do you think the issues have been in the last year and a half or so? But when it comes to 2026 and beyond, what do you think Red Bull's future is? Do you think it'll be a few years before they're winning championships again? Let me know in the comments section below. But guys, until my next video, and until this weekend's content covering the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, I'll be live this Saturday for qualifying at 11:30 AM UK time. Until then, guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.